So what's on the menu tonight? Well, tonight I'm going to make my version of steak au poivre and what I call Asparagus Chesapeake. Now I'm fortunate in the fact that I'm here in Rock Hall at the Sailing Emporium, and just in town is a grocery store called Bayside Foods. They're kind of a general store, but they have some of the best, freshest meat around. So steak dishes are really good. Let's start out with what we're going to need for the Chesapeake asparagus. Well, it's all pretty basic. I mean, the first thing you're going to need is fresh asparagus, which Bayside Food has. A little bit of butter, touch of olive oil, a little bit of salt, Old Bay, and lemon. Now you notice I have some cheesecloth here. When I cut my slice of lemon, I'm going to wrap it in the cheesecloth so as I squeeze that out, we don't get any seeds in our asparagus. And for our steak au poivre, you need peppercorns. Now you could go and crush peppers up, but I'm just going to use a pepper grinder on the coarse setting, a little bit of cognac or brandy. Now I happen to be using brandy, heavy cream, again just a little bit of margarine, and our steak. Now normally you would use something like a fillet or a thick ribeye, but since I'm by myself, I'm just using a little bit of butt steak or top sirloin. Still extremely good. Again, let me go back to the Bayside Foods. They have their own meat cutter. This is good meat. Now another thing with the steak, you want to let that set out for a half hour, 45 minutes, get the room temperature. It just helps enhance the flavor of the steak a little bit. Well, we're going to do the asparagus first, keep it warm. I also did some fried potatoes. I did those earlier. I think everybody knows how to do fried potatoes. So let's get started on the asparagus. Now one of the first things we're going to want to do with the asparagus, we don't need the rubber band, but the way to do this, and they keep the asparagus nice and crisp, is you're going to, what I call, snap it. This part is just going to be tough to chew. So we're going to do that for each one of these. Now I've done about half of the asparagus. This root, this end here, this is just going to be tough to chew. I'm just going to throw that out. And I've only done about half of the asparagus. I'll keep this other half for later. That's all I can eat right now. Since I only have 2 burners, I'm going to put that in here. Let me get the stove turned on. Got to get my spoon out. I'm going to put a little bit of margarine in here, or butter in here. Touch of olive oil. Now since I have a small pan, is that sizzling already? Nice. I'm going to cut these. Now normally you wouldn't do this if you had a big enough pan. I'm just going to cut those, set those in here. And these parts are still very, very tasty. We're just going to simmer that a little bit, let those saute slightly. I'll cut my lemon. Place it in the cheesecloth, wrap it up nice. Oh yeah, just a little bit there. Oh, you hear that? Nice. Touch of salt. I like a little bit of pepper. Turn this down a little bit. Put the cover on, let that simmer slightly. And here comes the Chesapeake part. A little bit of Old Bay. You see how that just clogged up? That's what happens with steam. You're better off, pour a little bit in your hand ahead of time. Sprinkle it on. Or else what happens is your holes are just going to clog up. Turn that down a little bit more. Now I'm going to get the stove going. Okay, so now you don't want to cook this too much. I mean, that's done. I'm just going to put that, I'm going to turn that off altogether. I'm going to get my skillet hot now. Add my margarine or butter. A little bit of olive oil. Let that get really hot. Take my steak, cover that with pepper. A poivre is with pepper. So now we let that get nice and oh yeah, that's good. And that's hot. I add my steak. Now I like my steaks pretty rare, so it's not going to take long for this to cook. Now, that's about done for me. I mean, you cook it the way you like it. Set that in there. And push it up to the side. I'm going to add my cognac. Should be able to flame that. Oh yeah, see, nice flame. Let that flame out. I'm going to tell you though, if you use a cheap cognac or a cheap whiskey, bourbon, whatever, it's going to taste like lighter fluid. So use the good stuff. There we are. Oh yeah, look at that. Nice, huh? I know what you're thinking. I got the fire extinguisher here just in case. Alright, now that the fire's gone out, I'm going to add my heavy cream. And what I can do here, I'm going to pull the steak out for a moment. Set that on the plate. Add my heavy cream. A little short on space here. Let that get nice and hot. Stir that up a little bit. I'm going to bring that to a simmer and it'll thicken just a little bit. Now you see how this is simmering, getting a little thick here. Now some people will use a veal broth or beef broth for that. I prefer just to use this right here. I put my steak back in. Turn this down a little bit. Flip it over. Oh, now you see how nice and brown that has gotten? I'm just going to let that simmer a little bit more. I may have added a little too much cream to it, but that's going to be alright. Now, I did fry some potatoes earlier, and I don't think that you need to go through that. Everybody knows how to fry potatoes, but this is nice too. I'm going to heat them up right in this broth with that. Let that cook. Now you can see this didn't take long to cook, but given my limited space, I am a little messy right now, but we'll fine and tune that as we continue this Cooking on Board series. Bon appetit.